All right, so you've really piqued my curiosity with this one. Seafood.
Yeah.
We're diving into a whole world of, well, the stuff that ends up on our plates, but this time it's about the career, right?
Exactly. We're talking about the import-export specialist, the one who makes sure that salmon ends up on your bagel and those oysters make it to your fancy dinner party.
And from what I'm seeing in this research, it's a lot more complicated than just, liking seafood.
Oh, absolutely. This isn't just about having a taste for tuna. We're talking about a global web of regulations, logistics, and, well, actually understanding what happens after a fish is caught.
So let's reel it in a bit, shall we? First things first. What does an import-export specialist in fish, crustaceans, and mollusks actually do? Because I'm guessing it's more than just, oh, I like seafood.
You got that right. Our sources are very clear. This is about deep knowledge. I mean, we're talking customs regulations, tariffs, international trade laws. You're dealing with products from all over the world, each with their own quirks.
Yeah, and things can go wrong. I mean, we've got an example in here where a shipment of live scallops got held up in customs because of, get this, a paperwork error. Cost the importer a fortune.
Oof, yeah. That's the kind of thing that can sink your business faster than you can say fish out of water.
Yeah.
So attention to detail is crucial. But to answer your question more directly, what they do on a daily basis, that really depends.
On what?
Experience level. Starting out, you're probably knee-deep in paperwork, coordinating shipments, really getting those foundational skills down.
We actually have a profile here of someone who started out exactly like that. They were coordinating shipments, making sure everything was compliant, like an apprenticeship in the world of international seafood trade.
Right. Then, as you gain experience, things shift. You might be negotiating contracts with suppliers in Japan, analyzing market trends.
Okay, so you start as the rookie, and then you can become the captain of the ship.
Exactly.
Speaking of ships, where do these import-export specialists actually work?
Now that's the exciting part. It's a mixed bag. You can find yourself at a bustling port one day.
The smell of salt in the air.
Exactly. Then, the next day, you're back in the office, poring over contracts.
And don't forget about the travel.
Oh, yes. Business trips galore. You could be at a seafood trade show in Tokyo one week and touring a salmon farm in Norway the next. It's a global job, that's for sure.
It really sounds like this career can take you places, but I imagine it takes a certain kind of person to thrive in such a fast-paced environment. So it's not just about knowing your way around a fishing boat. What kind of skills are we talking about here?
It's more about navigating the waters of international trade, which, takes a certain skill set.
Okay, so what? Give me an example.
Well, one that really jumped out from our research is active listening. Turns out, 57% of import-export specialists need that.
Really? I wouldn't have
Yeah.
thought of that. I mean, I get it anyway.
That's not just about the logistics.
Yeah.
You got to build relationships.
Absolutely. You're dealing with suppliers, distributors. Everyone's got a different language, a different culture. You got to be able to really listen and understand. Or that shipment of, I don't know, sea urchin could be dead in the water.
Exactly. And then there's the whole administrative side. 72%, a whopping 72% need those skills.
Okay, so more than just knowing how to use a fax machine, I'm assuming.
Way more. Our sources talk about the sheer volume of paperwork, the regulations, the permits. It's a lot to keep track of.
Yeah.
One wrong digit on a customs form, and boom, a whole shipment of Dungeness crab from Alaska is stuck.
Not the crab. So you're telling me these import-export specialists, they're like masters of detail.
Absolutely. They're juggling deadlines, tariffs, and let's not forget, this industry, it's not exactly known for being, well, consistent.
Yeah, you can't exactly predict the weather, can you?
Exactly. And that's where the knowledge and learning part comes in. Our sources emphasize this. It's not a career where you learn everything on day one and then, just coast.
So even seasoned pros have to keep learning, huh?
Constantly. Seafood industry is always changing. Global trade, consumer preferences. You got to stay ahead of the curve.
It's like that example in our research, the impact of Brexit on seafood trade.
Nobody saw that coming.
Total curveball.
Exactly. And that's why staying informed is crucial in this field. It's not just about what's happening today. It's about anticipating what might happen tomorrow and how that impacts the whole supply chain.
Sounds like strategic thinking is pretty important here. Speaking of strategy, I'm sure we've got some listeners out there who are like, okay, I'm hooked. How do I become this seafood mastermind? So how do I get started? Do I need to, learn how to speak fish?
I'm afraid not, though that would be impressive. But seriously, our sources are pretty clear. Real-world experience, that's key. You can't learn to swim by reading about it, right?
Makes sense. So what are we talking about here? Should I get a job on a fishing boat?
Not necessarily. Though, hey, if that's your thing, go for it.
Uh-huh.
But in terms of this career path, think internships, entry-level jobs in related fields. Logistics is a great example.
Yeah.
Even if you're starting in a warehouse, getting a feel for how things move, that's invaluable.
Okay, so like paying your dues, learning the ropes from the bottom up.
Exactly. And you never know, you might even find a niche early on. Say you land an internship with a company that specializes in, I don't know, sustainable caviar.
Ooh, fancy. Okay, so you've got some experience. What does the career ladder look like?
All right, so typically you're looking at starting as an entry-level import-export specialist. You're mastering the basics, maybe focusing on a specific region or product.
Like becoming the go-to person for, say, Alaskan king crab imports.
See? You're getting it. And then from there, you might move up to a junior import-export specialist. More responsibility, maybe even managing a small team.
Okay, so now the stakes are getting higher. No more just shadowing the boss. You got to make those deals happen.
Right. You're not just following procedures anymore. You're starting to shape them. Then comes that mid-level role. Our sources suggest this is where you really need that strategic thinking.
Less about the day-to-day, more about the big picture.
Exactly. You're analyzing trends, identifying new markets, thinking about the company's overall import-export strategy. Oh, and this is where networking becomes crucial.
Those industry conferences, trade shows, the whole shebang.
Yeah, that's where you build relationships. Because when you're dealing with international trade, it's not just about the product. It's about the people, too.
Okay, so where does it all lead? What's the top rung on this seafood ladder?
Well, that would be the senior import-export specialist, leading a team, setting the direction for your department. And let's be honest, that salary, it reflects that expertise.
Right, you're not just bringing home the fish anymore, you're bringing home
The big catch.
Exactly. But it's got to be more than just the money, right?
Yeah.
What about the impact?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, think about it. These specialists, they're the ones making sure people have access to seafood. And it's not just any food. It's a vital source of protein for so many people.
Yeah, and our sources talked about sustainability, too. That's a big deal, especially in the seafood industry.
Absolutely. Import-export specialists, they're on the front lines, dealing with things like illegal fishing, making sure products are ethically sourced. It's a big responsibility.
So for someone who really wants to make a difference, this could be a really fulfilling career.
No doubt. It's demanding, challenging, but also incredibly rewarding. You get to work with a product you're passionate about, you're connecting with people all over the world, and you're playing a vital role in a global industry.
Wow. Okay, so for anyone listening who's feeling inspired, what's our takeaway?
Do your research. Don't just take our word for it. Reach out to people in the field, maybe volunteer at a local seafood market. Really immerse yourself.
Get your feet wet.
Exactly, because this is a field that's constantly evolving, and that's part of what makes it so exciting.
I gotta say, this deep dive has definitely whetted my appetite. And not just for seafood. It's been fascinating learning about this career path with you.
Likewise, always a pleasure to talk about something I'm so passionate about.
And for our listeners, thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll be back next time with another fascinating career to explore.